On today's episode of Bill and Frank's Guilt-Free Pleasures, we talk about a song and its involvement in the creation of the MP3.
We talk about a song that strangely relates to the worst bartender in all of St. Catharines.
And after nearly 200 episodes, we finally establish that Bill is a know-it-all and I am a sexy bad boy.
You're listening to our take on DNA featuring Suzanne Vega's Tom's Diner.
Bill, today's song has an incredibly important place in the history of technology.
Yes, it does. Now, oddly, the original version of this song was what was used for this new technology, but the version we're doing today has more of a technology feel to it.
Tom's Diner by Suzanne Vega, originally released in the early 80s?
I think it was like 87 or 86.
87
right?
or 86.
But written in 81.
Yes, that's what I'm thinking. Yes. Was a completely a cappella song. However, Tom's Diner by DNA featuring Suzanne Vega is a techno remix of that a cappella song.
And when it came out, we heard it everywhere. Frank, do you remember the first time you heard this song or the sort of atmosphere you were around when you heard it?
It came out in 1990.
That's right.
So late 1990 is when it peaked on the chart. We were 13 at the time, so what, grade 8? I think?
Grade 8 year, that's right.
Yeah, I just remember it being, like you said, everywhere. It was just atmospheric and it could play in any kind of situation.
That's right. And I heard it heard or saw it on Much Music, the Canadian, music station.
Yeah, our equivalent of MTV.
That's right. They played it all the time.
Yeah.
I remember that eye spinning.
Yes.
And then being kind of vaguely creeped out, but also knowing I was hearing something way cooler than I was ever going to be in grade 8.
It had this feel about it. It was really, really cool and cutting edge, but also really, really comfortable and familiar.
That's true. And it having that spoken word quality to it made it feel so out of place with what was going on. That drum beat was really familiar.
Yeah.
And of course it was, because it was Soul to Soul's Keep on Moving, Don't Stop,
Yes.
which had just come out maybe 2 years earlier.
Yeah.
And that was still being played a lot. And then you have this beat where you hear it. And at that moment in time, you'd only hear a couple beats. The beat for Girl, You Know It's True would show up again and again.
Yeah.
This beat would show up again and again. And someone would usually rap over it. But when we heard a spoken word seemingly poem over top of it, that was something altogether new.
Yeah, and I think the song got a lot of derision, perhaps, from quote unquote cool people, because all the do 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 do, and it's just a woman talking about her day.
Yeah, I don't want to say infectious because it has that sickness connotation. But it
was infectious.
Yeah, it was something you just had in your head and you had it there. And it wasn't something I hated having in my head.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I know that at that time, I wanted to hear a lot of like CNC Music Factory, Make You Sweat, that kind of a thing. But this song was just everywhere and you couldn't get away from it, but you didn't want to get away from it.
Yeah, and it had the CNC Music Factory feel, but something a little more literary, because it wasn't about making someone sweat. It was about somebody living this life where they're just seeing things happen around them.
Yeah, exactly. It's a stream of consciousness type of song.
And maybe for us in grade 8, I know for me, I was kind of an observer, right? And so you kind of felt like you could identify with the character. I know I already talked about how this song was cooler than I would ever be in grade 8. I wanted to say in grade 8 just because, I was going to reach it at some point.
Yeah, exactly. I think you're almost there, the same level of cool as the song.
But Suzanne Vega just seems like she's permanently herself in the sense that
Yes.
she can be cool without worrying about what other people think about her. Oddly enough, she grew up in, I don't know if it was the Upper West Side where she grew up in Manhattan. She was born in California, but she only
Yes.
stayed there briefly. Ended up moving to New York. And the schools she went to, she didn't quite fit in with the culture around her, even though that very culture that kind of was dismissive of her ended up listening to this song all the time,
Yeah,
which she found kind of funny.
Exactly. And you mentioned how she has this sort of easy, cool feel about her.
Yeah.
I put her in the same camp as Amy Mann.
Yeah, that's a good call. Very good call. When she came up as a folk singer, it was in that New York scene, and some of those singers are your people. I know you were into folk singers back in the 90s.
Yeah.
She grew up in this scene where you had all these people who surrounded this one guy named Jack Hardy, whose actual last name was Studebaker.
Yeah.
I don't know if you read about this guy, but his uncle, I think it was his uncle, was the one who invented the Studebaker car. And so the guy was super wealthy.
Yeah.
And so Jack Hardy had all these folk people around him, and he would release like albums a month. And this showed up in 1982 on an album before the proper album came out. So there's a different version you can hear on YouTube of this.
So the original version that Suzanne Vega would have recorded.
Right. Or like a demo.
Yeah.
And so they would go, all these folk singers would go to his house or apartment.
Yeah,
and they would go there and play their unfinished songs, and he would give advice, and he'd have people around him, and they'd all kind of criticize each other like a writer's group.
Yeah.
And kind of build each other up. But in that scene was Sean Colvin. And in some of these albums also like Tracy Chapman, I think, came through there too.
Okay.
So there's a whole bunch of folk singers that came through this era. Is that the word?
Well, yeah, this era and this folk collective.
Yeah. And so Jack Hardy figures into this song
Yes.
towards the end.
Yeah, okay. Suzanne Vega grows up in New York.
Yes.
She went to New York City's High School of Performing Arts, and then she went to Barnard College, and
Right.
she majored in English literature.
Right.
So this would have been in around her fourth year in university, because this was written in 1981. So
Right.
probably would have been her fourth year, or she would have just recently graduated. But you had mentioned she took a course that involved, what did you call it again?
Dramatic monologues.
Dramatic monologue. And that's what this song is just talking about the things that are happening to her over the course of the day or the morning or however long this stretch of song goes for.
And she said she wanted to write a song that was like a little film, like a Truffaut film out of
Yes.
France or something,
Yeah.
like a European thing. And so she did it while she was at Tom's Diner. And I guess we're doing history of Suzanne Vega.
Yeah.
She was part of the scene, Jack Hardy's scene. Jack Hardy wanted it to be, what's the term I'm looking for? You don't know what I'm thinking. So.
No, just use your dramatic monologue.
Yeah, exactly. What is the thing where it's only pure if you don't make any money at it? What do you call that? Don't be a sellout.
Yeah.
Because his whole thing was to be an honest musician, you had to be a poor musician. But it's easy for him to say because his uncle invented that car. So
Yeah.
he was set. But Suzanne Vega got a record deal and she sold a lot of copies of that debut album. This is before this
Yes.
song comes out. And so the album's good. If you listen to it, it's great. But it's unlike anything else of that era. But they could go for it, these record companies.
Yeah.
She has a good relationship with EMI. I think that's who was her record company, if I'm right. Am I right, EMI? Or am I got a different... Or is it A&M?
A&M.
Okay.
It had letters in it.
Had letters
so
in it.
You were really close.
Okay.
M was consistent in both.
Right. But EMI is a bunch of jerks. A&M are really nice people.
Let's say yes. Yeah.
All right, I don't know. But either way, the album sells really well. And then she ends up working on this second album, which has her two biggest hits.
Yeah.
The big one is Luca.
Yes.
And it's an amazing song.
It is. And that's another song that there were a lot of parodies about it.
Yeah.
But considering the subject matter, I don't know if I really get behind the parodies at all.
Suzanne Vega feels the same way. She thought it was horrible.
Yeah.
And the song is amazing. I don't think we could do it as a guilt-free pleasure because it's just too sad.
Yeah, exactly.
That's on there. And then the album, which is called Solitude or something like that.
Solitude Standing.
Solitude Standing. I keep thinking of Peter Cetera's Solitude Solitaire.
Yeah.
His bilingual album.
Yes.
But
We've talked about that.
we have. So Solitude Standing, this sells really well. I think it's like 3 or 5 million copies something like that. Maybe 3 million.
Does very well, yes.
Yeah. On the strength of Luca. And then this song, Tom's Diner, the a cappella version, is released only in Europe. And I think it makes it to number 10 in Ireland or something like that.
Yeah, it doesn't really grab a whole lot of traction. But like we had referenced earlier, its place in technology lore is critical and crucial.
Because they talk about the producers of that album. Do you have their names in front of you? Sorry to put you on the spot there, Frank.
Yeah, it was Lenny Kaye and Steve Addabo.
Right. And now they talked about those producers capturing a pure vocal.
Yes.
Now, there's the version that you can find on YouTube from 82, but this one is especially clear. When you listen to it, you can hear her breaths, the enunciation, the way a mouth moves and stuff, but it's not like the stuff we hate hearing when we try to edit our podcast.
Yeah, it's not like the... sounds that I
don't ever
get
do
rid
that
of.
again. But there's something to it that's perfect. And this is what I came to in doing the analysis of this song. I hadn't revisited the a cappella for a long time. Mm-hmm. But my goodness, it is incredible. It's also incredible that in Ireland they would put it on the radio just as a cappella.
Yeah.
Like, how would that sound if you're working at a store and this is in the background?
I am sitting in the morning at the diner on the corner. I am waiting at the counter for the man to pour the coffee, and he fills it only halfway.
When the song first comes out, because it has that really, really pure vocal in it, a lot of audiophiles use this song to calibrate their stereo system.
Right.
Just so they get everything balanced just right. And then further to that, when German computer programmer Karl-Heinz Brandenburg was developing the technology for the MP3, he used this song, Suzanne Vega's song from 87, to create the first ever MP3.
That's right.
Then they gave Suzanne Vega the moniker Mother of the MP3.
Right. She didn't even know that was her name till she was, I think, picking up her daughter at school, and someone said, hey, look, it's the mother of the MP3, and this is when she found out about it. She didn't know at all. She read the article. They flew her to Germany for this, I don't know if it's a symposium or this presentation of the MP3.
Yeah.
On stage, while they're doing this talk about it, she gets on the mic and says, I'm not sure. It sounds a little off on the high or low end there. And they stared at her and said, it's perfect. And she's like, I don't know. And she actually disagreed with them.
Yeah.
And they were desperately saying, no, this is a perfect representation. Because as we've come to learn, MP3s are perfect, right, Frank?
Well, exactly, because they're technology, and that's what the internet told us, that they're perfect. But the MP3 was actually created, I think, a lot earlier than a lot of us suspect.
Yeah, but it was perfected, I guess, with Suzanne Vega.
Yeah, I think the MP3 was actually created, I think, the late 80s, early 90s. I think it was that early. It could have been. I might be completely wrong.
There's a man who is a part of this named R. McGuire. I had his name for a bit there and then lost it promptly. But he released something called Modernist, which is an anagram of Tom's Diner. And it was all the parts that it got cut out through the MP3 process.
Oh, really?
And it just sounds like I'm watching one of the scary parts of Twin Peaks.
Oh,
So there you go. Tom's Diner exists in all these spaces.
I'm reading this here that, it was the early 90s that the first MP3 was actually created.
Okay.
Karl-Heinz Brandenburg was working on it from 88 to 90.
Right. So Suzanne Vega was always a part of this.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Now that brings us to a bit of technology as well. We've got the Suzanne Vega part going on, but there are these two people from England.
Yes.
Who go by the moniker DNA. She referred to them as the banker and the accountant. Like when she met them, she thought they were going to be two black guys who were doing mixes and stuff. And she said there are these two people who looked like white guys who worked at a bank.
But I think that was part of the early 90s electronica scene, was a lot of nerdy white guys.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Moby. Well, Moby came out in 93, I think, was
right,
first album
I didn't think about that. Yeah, that's true. So DNA, what are their names again, Frank?
Nick Batt and Neil Slatford.
Okay, so they love Suzanne Vega. and they're messing around, and they create, without her knowledge, they claim to have called A&M, and A&M never returned their call.
Oh,
and she
okay.
said that's very believable.
Yeah.
So they made some sort of effort.
And she was on good terms with A&M.
Oh, totally. And so this is just record company life, right? So they don't wait to hear back. They end up making a remix of this song.
Yeah.
And they take the song apart a bit in order to make it work because there's nothing digital at this point. Really?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The technology that they had, they couldn't sample the entire song, so they had to break it off into chunks.
Right. So they take the ending of the original song and turn it into a hook.
Yeah.
Right? So the whole song rests on the do-do-do-doos,
Yeah.
which doesn't show up till the very, very
Till the
end.
very end. That's
and it
right.
fades off in the original version. So this, you have the do-do-do-doos, which are going to be the hook, and then you have soul to soul.
Yeah.
And they're using that drum beat. So I have written here, Frank, let me just grab my notes. You have DNA using the club mix, apparently, of Keep On Moving, drum beat in there.
Yeah.
So here it is. Okay, so there you go. You heard the drum beat, right?
Yep.
Very familiar, very 90s.
Yes. Oh, very much so. Yep.
I'd almost say it's like a hallmark of that era, that if you were to go back a year or two before, that sound doesn't really seem to exist, except I guess Soul to Soul does. But
Yeah.
when that sound, to quote Frank Pearson, swept the nation.
Yes. But Soul to Soul were innovators.
Yeah.
They were part of that scene along with Dream Warriors, Tribe Called Quest. They were in that same sort of collective.
Right.
Of that hip hop sound
Yeah.
that was sweeping the nation.
Right. And now they're from England too, which makes it interesting.
Yeah.
Right. This is before Mark Morrison too.
Yes.
Okay. So you have that sound, which is really familiar, but apparently, at least according to Who Sampled, that they're taking that drum beat from Biz Markie, who did this song called Pickin' Boogers, which I never thought I'd say on this podcast, which is disgusting.
Oh,
Of course it'd be Biz Markie would do that. And so,
I'm a little bit happy that you had to say that.
oh, so gross. Okay, here it is, Frank. So tell me what you think. So you can hear that.
Yeah, everything right up until and right after that record scratch part is, yeah, absolutely. You hear that all through the song.
Now, apparently, he's sampling a song called The Jam by Graham Central Station, which is from the 70s.
Okay.
And then we play that one for you.
All right.
Okay, there you go. Now that track is from 1975. I thought it might have been a bit earlier, but 1975. And there's so many songs from that era that have these moments of these drum breaks that stop and they do their thing.
The breakdowns, yeah, and they're fantastic.
Yeah. And little do they know, somewhere in New York City or in, well, I guess London. Well, I don't know. Is Biz Markie New York City? He might be.
I think Biz Markie is from New York.
They're going every weekend to those record stores, flipping through records, just grabbing whatever they can, going home, listening, and then finding that.
Finding those little gems,
Yeah.
right?
5 minutes and 7 seconds in. That means they listened through an entire song, but they'd have to listen through all these songs and pick that one moment. Yeah. It is a work of genius to pull this off.
It is work, right?
Oh my goodness.
They have to put that in, and also they might hear something and then go back to it, but have to remember, okay, this was on the fourth track on the second side and about halfway through, and then find that again, and oh, this will work. This will work here.
Exactly. I learned this on Hip Hop Evolution. That was on Netflix.
Yeah, with Shad, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they had like Grandmaster Flash talking and all these other people speaking as well. And what I learned from it is you have people who didn't have the advantage of learning instruments as kids.
Yeah.
So the instruments that they had at their disposal were just records, and they had their ears, and they were able to create music out of it.
Which is fantastic.
Yeah. Sort of like what we do in this podcast.
I'm not going to say that it's not fantastic what we do.
Yeah.
I think what we do is we take songs and we take music and we put our own little spin on it in our, and I don't use the term lightly, inept discussion and critical breakdown of the song.
I think when you said inept, you meant adept.
Yeah, tomato, tomato.
Okay, perfect. Well, here we go. Let's do what we do best. Let's analyze this song
Ineptly.
adeptly. Okay, so the first 7 seconds there, Frank, we have the a cappella, which is the original.
Yeah, but it's the end of the original.
Right, exactly. It's the end of the original. That's so interesting.
Yeah, it's
Right.
really cool the way they swing that over to the beginning and run it throughout the song. And that's really the part that brings everybody in.
Right.
That do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. Also, your father approached me today and said that he was going to pay for us to get singing lessons. I don't think we need singing lessons. I think maybe he needs listening lessons.
I think we need his money, so let's just say yes. And then we can put it through some sort of filter on AI. And
Perfect.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to play for you the end of the Suzanne Vega one right now, just so you can hear it and our listeners can hear it. All right, so there it is. Now, of course, in this version, at around 8 seconds, when we were listening to it, you said synth, and there's that sound, right?
And it is really atmospheric. I know I use that term a lot, and I feel that's the feeling you get from synths, but it moves like fog, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And this is going to stay over the track.
Yeah.
Right? It is the atmosphere of the track. This is how the track can live because it has an atmosphere.
See? Exactly. Yeah. Music's really just biology when you think about it.
Exactly. And then, of course, the joy of life is those drum beats.
Yeah.
They're coming in around, I don't know, is it 15 seconds or 13 seconds?
About that, yeah.
Yeah. And there's that soul to soul feel. And then at 30 seconds, we're waiting. There's the horn stab.
Yes.
There it is.
And that's exactly it. Horn stab. That makes complete sense because it's abrupt and it just hits.
Yeah. And that's going to define the whole entire song. We're going to keep hearing those sounds again and again. But now we're getting to Suzanne Vega's first verse.
Yeah. And I would like to say that horn stab sounds a lot better than the term I was coming up with, which was called horn bat.
Yeah,
Where
that's
it just hits.
Oh, hits you
like
with a bat? Like
yeah.
in the Untouchables?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not like a Dracula bat.
No, like a Al Capone bat.
Yes.
Okay. I found the written lyrics to this on the blog or the essay. I think it's more of an essay because it's called Tom's Essay.
Okay.
Written by Suzanne Vega for the New York Times, where she posted her actual handwritten lyrics.
Yeah.
What she called verse 1 for her a cappella is the same as the verse 1 for this.
Okay, perfect.
I am sitting in the morning at the diner on the corner. I am waiting at the counter for the man to pour the coffee, and he fills it only halfway, and before I even argue, he is looking out the window at somebody coming in.
I am sitting in the morning at the diner on the corner. I am waiting at the counter for the man to pour the coffee, and he fills it only halfway, and before I even argue, he is looking out the window at somebody coming in.
We had mentioned earlier that this is a dramatic monologue or stream of consciousness or basically sing what you see type of song. But on a couple of different sites that I've looked at, there are a lot of people reading into these lyrics.
Yeah.
And while I can appreciate different perspectives or interpretations of the lyric, I don't think that it is anything bigger or more than literally what's happening.
Yeah. And so you could talk about the perspective is meaningful.
Yes.
But it is about seeing exactly what's going on and working from that, but trying to look into metaphors about little bits and pieces
Yeah.
is a fool's game.
Yes.
As we say in the literary biz. I know they don't say that, and I'm not in the literary biz.
They could now.
They could now that we've said it.
Well, exactly. We're kind of in the literary biz in the fact that we speak.
Yeah, that's right.
We speak words.
I was reading the lyrics just before we played it there, and I couldn't help but move quickly with it.
Yes.
And so I'm just looking at the essay she wrote for the New York Times. She said, "The melody hit me as I was walking down Broadway fast." And that's important because the song moves fast. I wanted something jaunty. I remember liking the near rhymes of diner and corner, sitting and waiting. And then she said, although it's actually Tom's Restaurant, I changed it to diner because it sings better. But when you hear those lyrics, so if we go back to the lyrics we just heard, you don't have any rhymes, but you have morning corner, counter, and then you have
Coffee and halfway. It's
yeah.
close, right?
Yeah, it is close. Like, so all these words play in the same way with how your mouth moves.
Yes.
So it's like rhyme, but not, but it's naturally a flowing sort of thing. So there's a meter to it that works.
Yeah, and you say that it flows, yes, but there's an abruptness to it because you expect a rhyme at some point,
Yeah.
but it's never there.
Yeah. This was very frustrating for myself and for all my students when I try to teach them poetry and they're
Okay.
like, it doesn't rhyme. Like, it doesn't have to rhyme. If anything, when it doesn't rhyme, you might actually be getting a better poem here. And they're
Yeah.
just shaking their heads. No, no. So we got to talk about the guy working behind the counter.
Yeah.
And we need to talk about the worst bartender in all of St. Catharines.
Oh, the guy from The Office.
Yeah. Here we have the person pouring half a coffee to the narrator.
Yeah.
Because the person behind the counter really wants to talk to the woman who's coming in with the
Yeah.
umbrella, right?
Maybe it's really, really busy.
It could be. But I like that she was going to argue, or the narrator, because the
Yeah.
narrator is actually supposed to be from a man's perspective.
Okay.
Yeah, it's because she had a friend of hers who is named...
Oh, yeah. Brian Rose, right?
Yes, and he was a photographer, right?
Yes, that's right.
He had taken pictures of Manhattan, Berlin Wall, apparently. And so he said...
Berlin Wall's not in Manhattan.
No, it's not. But he did take pictures of Manhattan and the Berlin Wall.
Okay.
But he got on a plane.
Okay.
But he didn't turn his camera on for that plane ride.
I just want to make sure that you're clear because your geography is suspect at best.
It's true. It is a fair call out. I will take it. He said to her that he felt as though he saw the world through a pane of glass. And she said, "This struck me as romantic and alienated, and I wanted to write a song from this viewpoint." I love that.
Yeah.
It is both romantic and super depressing and alienated, right? He's there. Someone's poured him half a coffee and then is looking out the window at someone else.
Yeah.
He's not that busy because he wants to see that woman who's coming in.
That reminds me of, and I know this is a woe is me moment, and I was actually approached by another person today that said that I need to be less self-deprecating on the podcast. I'm not going to stop being self-deprecating. I'm just going to maybe cut back on it a little bit.
Okay, all right.
But it just reminds me of being at a party and you're talking to someone who has zero interest in talking to you, who's just looking around the room at something better. Like, what's better than this right now? Because I need to get myself out of this situation.
And I've been there too. I'm at a point now in my life where that's where you double down on the most boring conversation you can have.
Yeah.
And it's just enjoy the awkwardness of it.
Yeah.
And I just grin and keep going. I hope they're really interested in my grade 12 math class.
Yeah.
And also, you are pretty great. So the self-deprecating feels less believable as this podcast has gone on.
I think people also need to understand that we're being ourselves, but we're also being a little bit of caricatures of ourselves, I would say.
Yeah.
You're the guy that knows everything about the songs and the artists that we're talking about, and I'm just the sexy bad boy.
Are you saying I don't know stuff about songs?
No, I'm just saying that I'm more of a sexy bad boy than you are.
You are the sexy bad boy. And I like the idea that someone's going to say to you, you know what, Frank, you're a big phony. You keep saying you're not any good and you're awesome.
I thought you were going to say, you know what, Frank, you're a big phony. You're not a sexy bad boy.
You play by your own rules. You're a total bad boy.
Well, my rules are society's rules.
Yeah. Can we go back to the worst bartender in St. Catharines?
That's right.
Yeah, we were at the office, and the worst bartender in St. Catharines, as our friend Tom says, not Tom's Diner Tom, but Tom.
Different Tom, yeah. He
Different
doesn't have
Tom.
his own diner.
No, but he should. And
Yes.
Tom said, this bartender is always there when you don't need him and never there when you need another beer.
Yeah.
And when he refills your beer, he grabs your glass that might not even be finished and just pours from the same glass. glass. Just pours it and gives
Yeah.
it back to you.
That's exactly how I pour at the Winchester. Am I a bad bartender?
No, that's the Winchester rules.
Oh, okay.
Also, that bartender always gets into our conversations.
That's right.
When we don't want him there. But the guy at Tom's Diner pours half a cup of coffee
And then he just takes off.
and takes off. All right, I feel we covered it. We talked about how that guy who was a bartender in St. Catharines actually worked in New York somehow in the 80s. Well, we're not going to talk about the chorus because the chorus we've already done because it's the opener.
And there's really not a whole lot of lyrical analysis into
Oh, you're still going.
Oh,
Okay.
yes.
All right, let's go on to verse 2. And then we actually should probably talk about Tom's Diner at
Yes.
some point.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. It is always nice to see you, says the man behind the counter. To the woman who has come in, she is shaking her umbrella, and I look the other way as they are kissing their hellos, and I'm pretending not to see them, and instead I pour the milk.
It is always nice to see you, says the man behind the counter. To the woman who has come in, she is shaking her umbrella. And I look the other way as they are kissing their hellos. And I'm pretending not to see them, and instead I pour the milk.
You had mentioned earlier that it's kind of neat because it's always nice to see you is the line that the man behind the counter says.
Right.
But it's not to the narrator of the song, it's to the woman who's come in with the umbrella.
And that's the clever part of the writing. You know, when we
Yes.
talk about, the deeper meanings, it's not that. It's she says something about the song and you're anticipating one thing and then she throws you off, right? By saying that. She also throws you off by saying he pours milk. Like, you're pouring milk in your coffee?
Oh, yeah.
Like,
That
come on.
Exactly.
I mean, that must be because milk sounds better than cream, just like diner sounds better than restaurant.
that was my big hang up on the song is as someone who drinks their coffee black,
Yeah.
as a sexy bad boy,
Yeah. Yeah.
not judging people who put milk or cream in it. I know that you are because you're lactose intolerant.
I am, but if you're going to put something in your coffee, isn't it cream and you put milk in your tea?
I have no idea. I don't put either in either.
Right. Well, you're such a bad boy. How would you know?
A sexy bad boy, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that was great analysis there.
About how sexy I am.
But the person watching what's happening,
In front of them, yeah.
needs to turn away.
Yeah.
And does something else. Perhaps is even lactose intolerant and has now ruined their coffee.
Exactly. That whole, I'm pretending not to see them and instead I pour the milk. I like that because there's something voyeuristic about watching people intimately address each other.
Yeah.
You know, they're kissing their hellos, whatever that means. But the narrator's watching that, but they're pretending not to watch it because they don't want to feel like a creep.
Right. And you're not part of this world. So
Yes.
there's the loneliness and alienation part.
Yeah.
There's being part of a scene, but then also realizing you're not part of their particular scene.
Yeah.
So you're this bit character who needs to now look into their coffee.
And pour the milk and perhaps ruin their coffee if they're lactose
Exactly.
intolerant.
And now it's going to be half and half because they only had half a cup of coffee anyways.
Yeah.
It's also, just before we go on, Tom's Diner is Tom's restaurant, which has been made famous by Seinfeld.
Yes.
Right? Because it was the restaurant, which was called Monk's, apparently.
Monk's Cafe.
Right. Even though it says restaurant.
Yeah. And the fun thing is that there's a dish in Tom's restaurant called Suzanne Vega.
Yes, that's right.
So-
They got her name wrong.
So the song that really celebrates this restaurant, like long before Seinfeld even comes out, and they acknowledge her by getting her name wrong.
Right.
Which just seems like a really New York thing to me.
And interestingly, how we're analyzing the song is skipping over the very thing the song is about, which is that hook, right?
Yes.
And it's fine because we have to, because it's the same thing over and over.
Yeah.
But the power of this version of the song, and we can talk later about which version we like the best.
Yeah.
The power of this is they force you to pause, hear the doo-doo-doo-doos, which makes you start to think of what you just heard. Gives
Yeah.
you a pause.
Yes.
And to go over this, okay, we're now here. The person is now at the counter, has seen this go on.
Yeah.
And then that takes us now, well, we'll just go to verse 3.
Yeah, we'll go to the verse, but yeah, that's really cool because it gives you that time of reflection.
Yeah.
I never even thought about that.
All right. Well, that's why you're the bad boy and I'm the know-it-all. Yeah. Is that going to be the new name of the podcast?
Yeah, sexy bad boy, first of all.
Sorry,
But
no, I keep cutting that out. All right. Verse 3. I open up the paper There's a story of an actor who had died while he was drinking. It was no one I had heard of. And I'm turning to the horoscope and looking for the funnies when I'm feeling someone watching me. And so I raise my head. Do.
I open up the paper. There's a story of an actor who had died while he was drinking. It was no one I had heard of. And I'm turning to the horoscope and looking for the funnies when I'm feeling someone watching me. And so I raise my head.
We can pinpoint the writing of this song to a particular date or particular time because Suzanne Vega referred to the actor William Holden, who was in The Bridge Over the River Kwai, who had died the night before while he was drinking and fell and I suppose hit his head and ended up passing away.
Right. So apparently this must be, I think, Monday, November 16th, 1981.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
And then it rained the next day, but she was there the next day. So they kind of conflates the two together.
Yeah.
It's been interesting to read articles where they realized she had to be reading the New York Post because New York Post was the only one that had horoscopes and comics.
Yes, yeah.
So
there's this whole Sherlock Holmes sort of putting this song together and coming up with the actual story of what happened.
Our good friend Dan, who was on the podcast a few months ago for Snow.
Yes.
Right? He sent a thing about Ice Cube's It Was a Pretty Good Day. You know that song?
Oh, that's a great song, yeah.
So there was a sleuth on the Instagram who went through all the times the Supersonics played the LA Lakers and which day it was and what the weather was, and they pinpointed the good day that it must have been.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So we have 2 days that would have been figured out by internet sleuths.
Yeah.
Okay, Frank, we've had time to reflect on it because we have another chorus that's come in.
Yes.
Right? We go to verse 4, and this is the Somebody's Watching Me, which of course has me think about
Rockwell.
Yeah. There's a woman on the outside looking inside. Does she see me? No, she does not really see me because she sees her own reflection. I'm trying not to notice that she's hitching up her skirt, and while she's straightening her stockings, her hair has gotten wet.
There's a woman on the outside looking inside. Does she see me? No, she does not really see me because she sees her own reflection. And I'm trying not to notice that she's hitching up her skirt. And while she's straightening her stockings, her hair has gotten wet.
My question on this is, because this song is written from the idea or perspective of Brian Rose. Mm-hmm. So is the woman outside, is that maybe Suzanne Vega?
Oh, now you're one of those people reading in. I don't know, but there's a element of almost, I mean, you know this as a bad boy who's also...
Sexy bad boy, yeah.
That's right. There's a bit of sexiness here, maybe, right? She's looking in and it's like, oh, this is one of those movies where they see each other.
Oh, it's the meet cute.
Yeah. Is that it? Like,
that's a thing, apparently.
2 E's?
Yes.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay. So she's on the outside looking inside, and there's a moment, again, does she see me? And so the listener is like, oh, she sees him. No, she doesn't.
And this reminds me of high school when this has happened to me so many times, but people will wave and you think that they're waving at you, but they're waving at the people behind you. It's usually a popular girl. And I'm thinking, wait, I'm being acknowledged? This is fantastic. And then you realize that, no, it's not actually you. It's someone behind you. And then your face turns really, really red.
And they still don't see you.
No, they see that part. That's the unfortunate part. Yeah. You're invisible until you're embarrassed.
Does the red change color when the tears cross your cheeks?
I think it gets actually redder at that point.
Okay, let's get ourselves back on track because that got really depressing.
Yeah, it did. Now let's reflect on through that chorus again.
Okay, no, but she sees her own reflection and she's kind of like she's hiking up her skirt and fixing everything.
Yeah, fixing her stockings, yeah.
He has turned away from the people meeting each other to look at his coffee, feels he's being watched, so looks out the window, sees a woman who's now changing in front of the window. He now has to look away again because he's a voyeur everywhere he goes.
Yes. Well, I don't know if she's changing. I think she's just adjusting.
Yeah, but he still feels weird.
Yeah,
but he sees that her hair is
yes.
getting wet. So this poor person is just stuck in the struggle of not knowing where to look.
I understand their pain.
This is all going to culminate now, right? In verse 5. We've been able to reflect on all of this, and
Yes.
here we go. Now, this is verse 5 of the DNA version.
Yes.
I really want to talk about this.
Yeah.
And it's a much shorter, right? Oh, this rain, it will continue through the morning as I'm listening to the bells of the cathedral. I am thinking of your voice.
Oh, this rain, it will continue through the morning as I'm listening to the bells of the cathedral. I am thinking of your voice.
And that's the end of the DNA version.
Now it's shorter.
Yes.
And she has slowed everything down to the bells of the cathedral.
I love that as an ending. The bells of the cathedral. I am thinking of your voice.
Oh, it is powerful.
It's haunting.
Because now this person at the diner has somebody who he or she wants to be with, right? And there is some sort of memory. Something has happened.
Yeah.
But we don't get it because then it goes to do-do-dos.
Yeah.
However, on the original version, there's more, right?
Yeah.
So let's just take a look at the original version because I really want to talk about it.
Yeah.
To the bells?
I do
Yeah.
too.
Okay, good. To the bells of the cathedral, I'm thinking of your voice and of the midnight picnic once upon a time before the rain began and I finish up my coffee. It's time to catch the train.
I am thinking of your voice and of the midnight picnic once upon a time before the rain began. And I finish up my coffee and it's time to catch the train.
Yeah.
It's so powerful because Jack Hardy is the person she had the picnic with.
Yes, that's right.
And she said, even though he's kind of a cynic, she still believes in romance because of that picnic.
Yeah.
And that is powerful. And so she said, it's a true story. They now, Suzanne Vega and Jack Hardy. So even though she's writing from Brian Rose's perspective, she is now here. And she's thinking of those bells when they sat on the church step, sipping wine and eating sandwiches or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And the two of them are together. I don't know if it's romantic. For the sake of the movie we're going to make on this, it is.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
And the internet, thankfully, has determined exactly what cathedral she was talking about because the Cathedral of St. John is close to Tom's restaurant.
Right.
So she could have heard the bells of the cathedral from Tom's restaurant.
Right. Now, between the two songs, the one says, I'm thinking of your voice, and that's it. And it can give the listener a whole bunch of things to think about while the chorus is going.
And the way that it is sung, because it's drawn out and it's open-ended.
Right.
I love that.
And now the original version has the midnight picnic, and she's thinking of it, and then has to run, has to leave.
Yeah.
And it changes things too. And then you get the do-do-do-do-do-do-do as she just says it, but it's fading away because she's walking away. And that feels, I don't know, does that change the hopefulness of it? Is there hopefulness in the one or the other?
If there's not a hopefulness, there's a wistfulness at the very least in the DNA version because of the way that they draw out that last little bit. I am thinking of your voice, and it just sort of lingers on the air.
And the DNA guys told her, they said, listen, the part at the very end just didn't work musically with what we were doing, so we cut it out.
Yeah. And she also said that when she first heard the song, she was unsure whether she should sue them or congratulate them.
Right. So the story goes, now that we're talking about the whole idea of the song and how it came to her, is that her rep came to her while she was at, do you remember the show she's at? Arsenio Hall.
Oh, really?
She's at Arsenio Hall.
I didn't know that.
So
No.
at her third album she's promoting, which isn't doing well at all.
Yeah.
And she said she worked so hard at this third album.
Yeah.
So the record guy from, I know I'm going to get the name wrong, I'm going to say A&M.
Yes.
Was he an A&R guy, though?
I don't know.
A&M?
You're telling the story. I don't know this.
I'm doing my Who's on First impression.
Oh, right.
Sorry. Okay. He comes up to her at the Arsenio Hall show, and she hears the song. I don't know if he gave her a tape or whatever.
Yeah.
She hears it. And he mentions, I guess, that, we could sue them or whatever. But I have a feeling this guy knew something good was going on here.
Yeah.
And when she heard it, she liked it. And because she's super cool,
Yes.
she says, oh, no, we need to use this. And because she's also part of that whole world, I don't know if you read the story. Do you know how much money they paid them for the song?
No.
It was either 8 or 80. I hope it was $80,000. But they got a low sum, so it might have been even lower. Like, they paid the guys because they committed a crime.
Yeah.
They bought the song from them and then released it.
Yeah.
She's songwriter on it. They're not songwriter at all.
No, so she's getting all the proceeds from it, right?
So sometime in the mid 90s when that check finally came through, she probably was thinking, I can do whatever I want now.
Yeah.
And those two guys, well, they're doing fine.
I think they're doing okay.
They're doing okay. But I had in my head a band that didn't get anything out of this was Soul to Soul.
Yeah, because they were sampled, right?
They were sampled. They sampled someone else, and that Graham person doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah.
It's a different time back then. You could sample whatever you wanted.
It was the Wild West.
Yeah. Not the Will Smith song.
No.
That was the end of it all.
That was an amazing movie that he was in.
Yes, it was amazing in ways that amazing could be defined. Okay. She has a song released. It does really well, right?
Yeah.
Around the world. Does well in the States.
Yeah, it makes it to number 5.
Right. And then people start sending her remixes themselves. She just starts getting tapes from people.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And they just start piling up in her house, and she listens to all of them. And she likes most of them.
But of this song,
Of
or
this
just
song.
or various songs of hers?
This song.
Okay.
And this ends up leading to the album that I saw at the record store. It's called Tom's Album. She says to the people at the record company, I want to release an album called Tom's Album of the 12 best songs of this. I don't know if it's 12. The remakes.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's where you get all these versions from that period of time. And they said, I don't know, it's just one song. And she says, we should do it. And they just put it together super quick. So quick that her name's not on the album as like the artist.
Oh, really?
It's in there in the background somewhere.
Yeah.
They just put it out. It sells really well. I'm pretty sure it outsold that third album she did.
Oh, really?
That she
Oh,
worked
okay.
so hard on.
Oh, it's too
And she
bad,
had
though.
DNA do a remix of Rusted Pipe, which was on that
Yes.
album, but still didn't do the thing she wanted it to do.
Yeah.
So on the album, the very last track is the Tom's Diner 7-inch single from
Yeah.
DNA. But on it, you have all these versions. One's about the Gulf War. One's about, I think, unwanted pregnancy.
Oh,
and
really?
then one's by, let me just get the name here. Bit of trivia, because as you know, I'm a know-it-all.
Yeah.
I really feel it as a badge of honor. Let me get the name of this band. I didn't want to announce this one either. It's called Bingo Handjob. And that's REM with Billy Bragg.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
and they
geez.
released a version called Tom's ? And that is Michael Stipe doing his version of this
Really?
song. It's so
Oh,
weird.
wow.
The album's super cool.
Yeah. I'll have to give it a listen.
Yeah, and there's just, again, this looping sound.
Yeah.
Now, there's tons of versions of this.
Yes.
So this is
Yep.
kind of like the Bruce Hornsby thing, where everyone wants to do the way it is.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring Bruce Hornsby into this.
But Tupac does a version of this, doesn't
Exactly, as he does with the Bruce Hornsby track.
Yeah.
Fallout Boy has a song called Centuries.
he? Yes.
Which is using this song. Someone else sings the doo-doo-doo-doos. There's also our man from the Top Gun soundtrack, Giorgio Moroder,
Yes.
who does a version of this in 2015 with Britney Spears.
That's right. Yeah.
Suzanne Vega likes it all. But I would too, because I'd be getting royalties for every single
Yeah.
one of these songs.
Absolutely. But I get the feeling that Suzanne Vega is just super cool.
She is. But she wasn't cool with one request. She's allowed every single request but one, apparently.
Okay.
Pornography.
Okay.
You didn't see that coming.
No,
But she
not at
said,
all.
I've had all these requests, but that was the one request that was put in. And she said, nope, that's the only one she's really said a hard no to. So there's many versions out there, Frank. We've just gone over that, but we haven't talked about the videos, mainly the video for this, and then we'll talk about that first video.
Yeah, I kind of really love the video of this because it has all that diner imagery.
Yeah.
It's in black and white. There's some dancers that show up in it, but the percussion is showing a knife and a fork drumming on a coffee maker.
It's so awesome.
It's really cool.
And they love going literal. I pour the milk, they just break a coffee full of milk.
Yeah.
And then when they mention coffee, just break a coffee cup.
Yeah.
It's coffee.
There's
pours
a
all
lot
over.
of coffee being thrown around and coffee cups broken throughout the video.
And the two people gently making out.
Yes.
Make it seem so, what's the word I'm looking for? Sexy, Frank? I think that you're the bad boy.
It makes it feel intimate.
Yeah, there you go. I like that. Look at you.
I'm grown up sometimes.
You are, yeah. Yeah, and that's big.
Even though I am just a sexy bad boy.
The video has that eye turning at the very beginning.
Yeah.
And like you said, they had them playing the instruments. And it had also the most rudimentary versions of 1990s dance moves.
Yeah.
I felt like it was a 1990s dance video for beginners where it's like, hey, here's a really slow version of, and I don't know, the Running Man.
The Running Man, the Roger Rabbit.
Yeah,
all
it's
those
like
sort-
hip hop moves because
Yeah.
they don't look like they're moving too fast.
No, but the song doesn't move fast.
No.
So I think it's cool that it's just sort of rudimentary.
It is. And I don't want to try to attempt to act as though I'd be cool. And we've brought this up before and it will never happen. But if we did a TikTok video,
Yeah.
we would be using these moves.
I recently asked a friend of mine who is on various platforms of social media if they had a TikTok account, and her comment was, "No, I'm too old for that." And my comment back to her was it's like, that was a test and you passed. Because at a certain age, I don't think he can be on TikTok.
How old was she?
42.
Okay, that's good. So what would we be on? Like a shareable video that people send through their emails?
MySpace? That's still a thing, right?
It could be, for all we know. We barely know the internet, Frank.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. I do know about MP3s.
Well, yeah, so do I.
All right.
The song created them.
It did. Thank you, Suzanne Vega. And then all your fellow artists despise you for this, too.
Yeah. Metallica hates this song.
that drummer is not happy.
No. Lars Ulrich?
Yeah. Now, the video that she made way back in 86 or 87 is really cool because it's like not her lip syncing.
Yeah.
It's her actually singing it
Yeah.
beside a window, but not at a diner. It looks like she's in a stairwell, maybe in or a hallway in a hotel.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
How I'd describe it. And it is super powerful. She's really comfortable in front of the camera, which not all artists are capable of doing.
Exactly, right?
But she does it. Looks out the window, and it works.
The original song is kind of stark, but it makes sense because it is so minimalistic that video is pretty minimalistic too.
And it works really well.
Yeah.
She envisioned it being a piano and voice song, but she
Yeah.
couldn't play piano.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I read that too.
And on the album, there's a Tom's Reprise.
Is there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Which has that sort of fretless bass that feels very much of its
Oh,
time.
okay.
I like it. Not everyone's cup of tea, but it's instrumental and it's supposed to loop you back in the album. Because the album begins with this, which is unheard of pretty much in albums of that era, where you'd have an a cappella song beginning an album.
Yeah,
That's not an a cappella album.
That's a third, fourth song.
Yeah. This was the first, and then the last song was the reprise.
Yeah. So it just bookends the whole thing.
Yeah. And I have to say, through the week of listening to the DNA version and her original really moves me.
It's very powerful.
Yeah, I think I do like it better.
Yeah.
But I would only be able to like it better by being introduced through DNA.
Yeah. In the context of the DNA remix.
This song wouldn't have been known had it not been for the DNA remix.
Yeah. Which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
But thankfully, those guys saw something amazing in this song and created this.
Right. And they said, if we didn't do it, someone else would have.
Yeah.
And they're right. I hope. But then I also think about all the songs we don't know of yet. And it makes me want to go back to these albums and be like the people who, like Biz Markie going through the record stacks.
Yeah.
And finding records and just sitting there and listening to them. Without skipping through MP3s, they're listening to them on vinyl the whole way through.
And this was a niche song that audiophiles used it to calibrate their stereos to. So it was known, but it wasn't known to the greater public.
Right.
And because DNA did this remix, that's what really, really brought it out to the forefront.
So the original is like caviar and the DNA is like ice cream. I was really struggling. I started really strong there with the caviar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever actually had caviar?
Yeah.
Have you?
I closed my eyes when I ate it.
Okay.
And I didn't feel like...
You were fancy?
No, I think I'll just stick to...
Ice cream?
I'm lactose intolerant.
You can't even eat ice
Oh my
cream.
goodness. I should have come up with popcorn instead. At least I could have ate that if it had no butter.
Or like the fake butter or vegan butter.
Oh, yeah. Right on. All right, Frank, you got the top 10 for us?
Yes. So this peaked at number 5 the week of December 22nd, 1990. And honestly, this top 10 is pretty awesome.
I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Number 10, Sensitivity by Ralph Tresvant, who was from
New Edition.
New Edition. Yes.
Right. Okay.
Number 9, The Way You Do the Things You Do by UB40.
Oh, man. I hate UB40. I love Red Red Wine, so I'll put that out there.
Okay, don't you love that song though?
I like the Four
The
Tops
way you
version.
do the things you do.
Was it Temptations or Four Tops? Because I had a Temptations Four Tops album where they jump back and forth.
I think it was
must be
the Four Tops.
Oh, okay.
I think.
Okay. I hate UB40s I hate that. Oh, this ruined my day. Okay, go on. Number 8, please.
Number 8, Freedom by George Michael.
That's one of the best songs ever.
Yeah, so that puts you...
Back in the mood. Freedom
Okay,
90. That's
perfect.
all about the 90s.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm Your Baby Tonight by Whitney Houston, number 7.
I ever tell you I didn't like that song?
You don't like that song?
No, I felt like it was trying too hard.
I love that song.
Oh, sorry.
So good. It was a former number 1. The nations tell me that it's a great song.
All right.
Number 6, High Enough by Damn Yankees.
Yes.
Amazing.
Oh, yes, okay.
5, Tom's Diner, DNA featuring Suzanne Vega. Mm-hmm. 4, Impulsive, Wilson Phillips.
Lose myself in your kiss. You're giving me a feel. All right. Okay, sorry.
It is, I believe, a critically underappreciated song by Wilson Phillips.
That's right.
I think it's actually better than Hold On.
Whoa. Wow. Third single. I think it was third single on that album.
Yep.
All right.
Because I had the album. I had the tape.
Okay.
From a Distance, Bette Midler, number 3.
Future episode. We have so much to work through.
So much.
Theologically, mostly.
Mostly, yeah. Number 2, Justify My Love by Madonna.
I hate that song. She did it with Lenny Kravitz. I don't know what he was doing there. And I hate that it reached higher heights. No one listened to that song because it was so bad. I know you're a badass rebel, play by your own rules sort of thing.
Sexy Bad Boy.
Sexy Bad Boy, right.
I also don't like the song.
I hate that song. Only to be matched by the crappiness of Erotica.
Yeah.
I hate that song too.
Oh, it's terrible.
Can we talk about Cherish though? What a song. All right.
That's a great song.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
Number 1, Because I Love You, the Postman song by Stevie B. My man.
How is that song number 1 and not this song? The world is a place.
That was actually its second week at number 1.
Oh,
too.
2 weeks? Unbelievable. Man, how are we going to ever achieve world peace when they pick the wrong songs from... I know you love that song.
I adore this song.
And we've done an episode on
Yeah.
it, so you can look it up to find out how we felt about it.
Well, you know how I felt about it.
I know. I just like the idea that I'm now doing commercials in between our episodes. All right. Okay, great. All right, we talked versions. We talked top 10. Mixtape, Frank?
Mixtape.
Yeah.
Did you actually get yours done?
I
You came
have
in a little
something-
frazzled.
I did come frazzled, but I have a Frankenstein version of it. Kind of like a mixtape mix, like a dance mix thing.
Gotcha.
Yeah. All right, give me something that I can hold on to here.
Okay. My mixtape is all songs that are places or destinations.
Oh, that's a good one. Okay.
I'm going to start with Carnival by Natalie Merchant.
Very good. Very good. Very good song.
Love Shack, B-52s.
Oh, a great song.
Yep. Club at the End of the Street by Elton John.
Oh, that's where we'll meet.
At the club at the end of the street.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Great
That just
song.
brought me back. Wow. Okay. All right. Sorry, I got lost there.
No worries. My Hometown by Bruce Springsteen to slow it down just a little bit.
And depress us. Totally.
Yeah.
Okay. Good job.
And close it all off with 59th Street Bridge song, Feeling Groovy by Simon and Garfunkel.
Very good, Frank. Well done. All right. My mixtape is all ideas of mixtapes that I had for this song. First idea.
Are there actually songs in the mixtape,
There's
or is
songs,
it just
yeah.
ideas?
They're ideas with songs. The first idea was songs that came out at the time that sounded like it. Like you had a drum beat and you're like, oh, cool. There's someone talking. So one of them was the one that went, ça, dis-moi. Wah, 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 wah.
Oh, Enigma.
Yeah.
Sadness Part 2.
Sadness Part 2. All right. Next one. DNA produced it and you mentioned it before we began recording. Like, I'm going to bring that in my mixtape. Mummer's Dance.
Oh, Lorraine and McKenna.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they actually did the mix of it, I
Yeah.
guess, or a mix of it.
Yeah.
Maybe not the mix of it, but a mix of it. And then, because I couldn't complete the mixtape on that one, I thought, what if there were songs that were a cappella that could also have a dance beat to them? And so I thought, oh, I know a cappella songs. Don't worry, be happy. What if that had a sexy bad boy beat to it? Or The Longest Time with a sexy bad boy beat. Okay. And then I ran out of...
How confusing this mixtape
It gets
is.
worse. Don't worry. And then I ran out of speed and said, oh, okay, what about songs that had great remixes that came back in the 90s? Like Oh, What a Night by the Four Seasons.
Yeah.
And then I couldn't think of any others. So then, even though I know there's others out there, I didn't do the work. So I saw this comment on one of the websites I was on that said, file this song, which was Tom's Diner, under songs about newspaper articles read.
Yeah.
And then I thought, A Day in a Life by the Beatles, where he read the article about his friend who died.
That's right. Yeah.
And I ended it just like that. Just like the end of that song. That's the end of my mixtape.
That was so all over the place. I love that.
You're welcome.
I want to ask you, Bill, pointedly, what part of this song gives you the most joy?
Oh, that's a good question because, it's the DNA version where you have drum beat, the doo-doo-doo-doos, which would be most likely the thing that I have rolling in my head.
Yeah.
But if I were trying to be more original, I would have the thinking of your voice.
Yes.
Yeah.
And for me, it's the to the bells of the cathedral. And then you get those cathedral bells
Yeah.
going. We didn't even mention that when we talked about the
but
song.
you can hear them just barely. And luckily, I have a stereo sound
Yeah.
set up for us here.
So I could hear it in just one speaker.
Yeah, and it kept moving back and forth. Do you know? And
Did it?
Well, no, it didn't. But I just want to tell you this, even though you don't want to know, because you're such a bad boy,
Sexy bad boy.
sexy bad boy, that the original version of the song from '82 that was on the Jack Hardy Give Out to the Mailing List album, I thought my headphones were doing something wrong because I could only hear it in one side, and then I realized it was moving from side to side.
Oh,
It was
okay.
super cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, but it still wasn't as good as her original pure vocal. Not original because I guess it came later, but that pure perfect vocal.
Yeah,
they
on
nailed
the
it.
87 album. Yeah.
I wonder how many takes it takes.
Yeah. Yeah,
do this
honestly, right?
Yeah,
It is such an iconic song.
yeah, and I'm so glad you brought it to the table. I
I-
didn't think about this.
Even though I'm a bad boy, I do good things sometimes.
You do. That is the paradox of the sexy bad boy Frank Pearson.
Yeah.
And even though I know it all, I didn't know this. And I don't know much, but I do know I love this podcast.
Thank you so much, Aaron Neville.
We want to thank you for joining us for our episode on Tom's Diner. And as you know, if you listened to our podcast before, we like to end really cleverly by relating things back to lyrics of the song. But this one, as Frank told me off mic, is pretty tricky. And so I'm going to begin this way, and Frank's going to help me out. I was sitting in Frank's pub, recording this podcast. We needed an ending. So Frank looked at me.
You are listening to Bill and Frank's Guilty Pleasures podcast.
Brilliant. That's good. That's very good. Okay.